And for everyone who's here, I have a couple of minutes and I'm just going to share straight from my heart. Thank you, Justina, for your session. Thank you, Lashakara, and everyone else that has been up here. You have a lifetime opportunity to catch a fire that can continue to burn long after now. The school environment is great. And here in the school environment, we learn to make our A's. But the truth is that there are things you need to make your A's in life. Making your A's in school is quite different from making your A's in life. So while you make your A's in school and get yourself ready for life after, there are things you need to learn that can help you make your A's in life. I sit on boards of organizations on 3 continents. I have spoken on 4 continents. I teach, train on 4 different continents. I live on 2 continents. I've lived in Boston, Massachusetts, and then I moved to New York. And right now I maintain residency both in Nigeria and in New York. I have learned a few things that I believe will be useful to you and if you're going to listen to me. And by the way, I've written over 20 books, well over 20 books. Yesterday, I released 2. For everyone born on May 23, I'm going to give you at least 3 copies of my books each for free. At least three. And if you like 23 audios, that's my media manager right there, 23 audios, any of their choice, give them a catalog to choose 23 and you're getting them for free. My first degree was here in the university. And I just came to say to you that whatever you can dream and work towards is possible. It is said that one of the worst injustices that you can do to a man is to destroy his ability to dream and to have vision. Your dream actually is what sets the pace for the progression of your life. Your dream creates the room into which your life flows into. It is said success never flows into a vacuum, it flows into systems. And one of the surest systems into which your life can flow is the specific dream. Every time you gain clarity of who you and where you want to go, you inspire the energy within to begin to pursue it. There is a world of possibilities sitting on your inside. If you don't have a purpose, somebody's going to give you one. If you don't know where you want to go, someone is going to suggest where you should go. It's early in your life to know what you want for your life, where you want to go, and to begin to build the capacity to pursue it. We are in Calabar right now, but you can receive Voice of America, you can listen to BBC, you can listen to stations way outside of Nigeria. But we have stations in Calabar that cannot be received in the next city. What is the difference between broadcasting from all the way from London and all the way from the United States and receiving it in the forest with a transistor radio and broadcasting from our city and you cannot even receive it in the next city? It's capacity. The transmitters have different capacities. If you want to go far, you must dig deep. If you want to go far, you must build the requisite capacity. I've been asked to speak on the URL of Exponential Success, Technology of Unlearning, Relearning for Self-Actualization. And the theme of this event is beyond the labels. A principle is a fundamental law that governs function and behavior. Every time you gain access to a principle, your life becomes predictable. Every time you get access to a principle, your life becomes predictable. Principles were given to us so that life can be made easy. Life is complicated to anyone who does not have access to principles. Life is complicated to anyone who does not have access to principles. If you want to predict your outcomes, then you must look for the principles that create them. Because for every favorable outcome, there is a principle that governs it. H2O is water. Whether you're in Havana, whether you're in Ouagadougou, whether you live in my Long Island, or you live in Mali, or you live in, Porto Novo, wherever it is, it's H2O. That is a principle. When you gain access to principles, you can create at will. Principles empower you to create life and you want to navigate through life and move from to where you prefer to be. Look for the principles that govern the successes where you want to go. Look for the principles that govern the successes where you want to go. So developing success requires you being intentional about your life. I've been a serious person my entire life. And I tell you what helped as a young man was at the age of 17, I had mentorship. And I learned quite a number of things from being under mentorship. One of the things I learned was to read books. My mentor rubbed it in so that the friends I had, I mean, we didn't have the money to buy all the books that we wanted, but you had a friend that had a book or two. You had another friend that had a book or two, and another friend that had a book or two. You were number 5 behind his book, number 2 behind his book, number 3 behind his book, maybe number 7 behind that book, and other people like behind your book too. And that's how we read all of these books. At the age of 19, I was doing an assessment of how far I had fared and how well my vision was doing. This was a vision assessment. I realized that because of the enormity of the dream and vision that I had and how far I wanted to go, there were things I needed to do more. So I made decisions. I said I wasn't going to watch this kind of thing. I wasn't going to read this kind of thing. I was going to read this kind of stuff and only watch this kind of stuff. If it wasn't adding to me one way or the other, socially, intellectually, spiritually, I was not going to fellowship with it. And so I gave myself to reading. And at the age of 19 and 6 months, you may have heard me say this 1,000 times, and I won't stop saying it. In 6 months, I read about books. I read about 24 books in 6 months. I was 19 years old. Now, what that did for me was it radically changed my worldview. It expanded the horizons within my mind. I began to dream even much more. My mouth became bigger than my head. And what that means is I was saying things that never looked like my age. Every time I had opportunities to speak, people asked, how old are you? Where are you from? You know, because the things I said were literally bigger than what my age should be. And I think I've been older than my age for a very long time. You know, Justina said she's 15 years married this year. I'm 18 years married this year. 18. Now, believe it. 18 years married, you know. Now, but the things that shaped my life and shaped my journeys, every decision we make in our life is destination specific. Listen to me. Every decision is destination specific. And when your decisions become informed decisions, then you're very likely going to arrive in the right place. And so what reading did for me was it made me see life differently. My habits were different. I have never had the opportunity to smoke or drink. You know, somehow I think that maybe at the age when I should think about doing it and trying to explore, that's when everything radically changed in my life. And I must add here that even though this is a secular stage, I'm telling you that the world believes it or not, whether the world believes it or not, when you know Jesus at a young age, it changes everything in your life. I did at 16. And so that put me in a place. And then from 17, as I started reading even much more, my life totally changed. My world totally changed. What was interesting to people my age wasn't interesting to me because my mentality had radically shifted. You know, it is said, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. It's a very powerful principle. As he thinks means we think differently. As he thinks means the pattern of thought that you incubate will determine the direction of your life. Let me ask you a question. How do you think? If you do not know how you think, then you need to give you an assignment of researching how you think, because the way you think is how you are. You will remain as you are until there is in your mentality. Nothing changes in a person's life until mix dynamics of his thinking. Nothing changes in your life until the dynamics of your thinking change. I had dreams from a young age. I believe that carried in me things that would be heard all around the world. I believed it. And I started preparing locally with the globe in mind. I trained locally with international standards. And so when I had opportunities to speak locally, I trained myself. You think you want to speak to the world? How is your public speaking? Are you training yourself? Are you training yourself for a global audience? When I started having opportunities to travel out of the country about maybe 15 years ago, 2000 was the first time I had the chance to leave this country and to speak in another nation. It looks like I was for those platforms because I sufficiently trained myself. I had the requisite information to engage audiences. I also had the communication apparatus to communicate in a manner that can reach out to these audiences, speak to them, and also move them from one place to what is the strength of your communication power. I've seen people who mess up their opportunities. They have potential, but they mess up their opportunities because they just don't seem ready for it. How ready are you for where you're going? And I'm telling you, if you're still in the university right now, one of your biggest opportunities right now, I read microbiology in my first degree, even though now I'm doing a PhD in educational psychology. I did migrate from the natural sciences and went into other fields that I believe connect very, strongly with my genius, right? Now, but while studying microbiology, I was reading books on human resource management. I was reading books on psychology. I was reading books on administration. I was reading books on leadership, reading books in other areas of life. So it didn't take me long to know after I graduated that my primary genius wasn't within my certificate. By the way, everything you get in a university is called a degree because the university never gives you everything. It's just a degree. It might be 15% of 360, might be 90% of 360. It's called a degree. Go for a second degree, it is still a degree. Do a third degree, it's still a degree. I'm working on my fourth degree, and it's still just a degree. There is something about the science of life that requires you to expose yourself to information, a wide wavelength of information, so that you can stand out where you are. Nobody wants to pay you to do exactly what they know to do in exactly the way they've always experienced it. In a wide exposure to information, there is an accentuation of the gifts that you carry. That's where your uniqueness finds expression. Listen, there is no competition you truly have in your uniqueness. When you are in the center, the nerve center of your uniqueness, anybody else who tries to compete with you can only be at best second best. Because you are at your best, you command the market in the middle of your uniqueness. Read books. Read books. You are successful. Read books. URL, unlearn. Why unlearn? There are unproductive ideas. There are dysfunctional ideologies that you may have held dear all through your life. And you see, it's more difficult to unlearn than it is to learn, but you have to unlearn as you grow. If you're going to seek growth, if you're going to move from a place of stagnation into a dynamic place in your life, then you have to unlearn. There are things you know that are not correct. There are things you know that are knowledge at a lower level of life. You have to unlearn to create the room to learn. URL. Now, relearn. Why do I need to relearn? There are things you know that are true and correct, but are not producing the results that you have. A wise man said, many years ago, that if you know something that isn't working for you, you have not known it enough. You have not known it enough. I believe knowledge releases its power in the place of understanding. That's why you must stay with certain things that you know long enough until you have the understanding that shows you how to apply these things. If you don't know how to create trade secrets from the knowledge you have, you probably haven't learnt it enough. You haven't learnt it enough. If what you know is not producing the results you want, you have not learned what you know enough. You have not learned what you know enough. Then learning. You learn because there are new things. Life is constantly evolving. I did a teaching one time, and I called it skill evolution. And I said, everything is in the process of evolution. I would say to the young people around me, many who are doctors now, that you want to work in a hospital that treats the King of England. Are you acquainted with the software in those hospitals? In the United States, for us, is St. Andrews. That's where you fly the president to. St. Andrews probably is one hospital that probably has some of the best specialists in the world. And sincerely speaking, when I think about my doctor in New York, his name is Dr. Liu. In the United States, you are mandated, if you have health insurance, you're mandated at least once a year to do physicals and to do general medical examination. So when it's time, the hospital or clinic, whoever is your PHP, your primary health provider, will send a message reminding you that you haven't come for your physicals. Now, when you get into these offices, some of the equipment that are used, I know Dr. Bernard is here, but thank God for our hospitals, but we have a long way to go. And so a doctor who is trained here locally will need to work very hard and get himself acquainted with some of those equipment and the softwares. Now, but my point is, you dream to go there. Have you already started researching about where your field is going to? Today is not just about architecture, just draw a nice building. Now it's about functional buildings. It's about the kinds of materials used in buildings. It's about maximizing natural light. There are other things that govern the field of architecture now. Now you hear things like green architecture. Are you in sync with the current researches in your field? Are you in sync? Are you what you want to do is going to? Listen, you cannot be a leader if you do not develop the capacity to predict events, prepare for events, and alter your perspectives and positionings so that you can align with the path that takes you there. That's how to be successful. May I say to everyone here, there is no success for people who are just laid back. There is no success, really, even for people who are working hard to get first-class certificates. It is good to get a first class. I would say 10 times it is good to get a first class. But a first class is not a sure pass to a first-class life. There must be first-class thinking. There must be first-class positioning. There must be first-class exposure to life information that can take you there. You need to learn. You need to learn. My reading this year has been slow, but I'm traveling towards my 20th book for the year. And my target for the year is somewhere around 60. If I miss my hits for the year, at least I should read 40 books. Do you understand what I'm saying? I've spoken to audiences, whether it's oil and gas. I've spoken to professors outside of this country, organization leaders, and of course, I preach and teach globally. You cannot and influence in these audiences at times if you're just the ordinary who wakes up, with the lax attitude and gets there. I do not remember one place I have spoken anywhere in the world where I wasn't required to come back. I do not remember one place. You must prepare for where you want to go. Life belongs to people who prepare for it. Like somebody said, you are the background, right? This is not the time when you're looking back and feeling so sad for yourself and imagining that, your parents, you're this, you're that, you're that. Now I cannot blame it on my parents. I have children who I am their background. I have children. And I'm doing the best that I can. In New York, I paid my children in dollars to read books. Yes, I would rather pay now. And they know that one of the easiest ways to get money from me is to read. So somebody's struggling to read a certain number of books and they're already calculating how much they're going to get. You see, I'm helping them form a habit. I paid them to read books. I paid them to memorize scriptures. At this stage, is memorization. In the course of time, they will understand and apply. They will understand and apply, but I'm getting them to form habits. We are all a product of our habits. A habit is a habitat that determines the well-being and welfare of an organism. When a fish is in the aquatic environment, it glides. That's his strength. Bring a fish out of water, it begins to hop like a frog. Irregular behavior, right? So our lives are conditioned by our habitats. When you create a habitat of wisdom, it is impossible to fail. Impossible to fail. Impossible to fail. Lastly today, I'd like to say good afternoon. Thank you.